Hello. So I've got a bunch of new people on my page, and I've got some people asking me the same question, and I wanted to make a new answer to what is ACT and why would a behavior analyst, right, give a fuck about it? So let's hop in. ACT is short for the acronym Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, or Acceptance and Commitment Training, depending on who you talk to. ACT, sometimes people refer to it that way. Sometimes people say ACT. It doesn't really matter. Whatever vibes with you is what I want you to call it, okay? And what it is the idea that mindfulness and private events play a role in our observable behavior. And as you probably know, if you're a behavior analyst, that is a controversial statement. However, there's a lot of wonderful research behind it. I want you to go ahead and start with Stephen Hayes. Look up any of his books, including Relational Frame Theory, which is just a whole book in itself. And again, it gives rise to acceptance and commitment therapy. And then there's a bazillion research articles and other books that will go off of that if you start with Hayes. You could also pick up any of the books by Russ Harris and take a look at the reference section. I'm not good at referencing things, but I know that you can go look them up if you need those resources. And then it'll take you to people like Kelly Wilson, Kirk Strassel, Patty Robinson. I might be pronouncing Kirk's last name incorrectly. Wonderful people like Evelyn Gould, on and on and on and on and on. Okay. So roughly in relational frame theory, what they talk about, right, is that truth is relative to the experiencer. Okay. And whatever truth you are looking for, right, you will find evidence of. We know about this because we have to take a lot of measures when doing science to keep us from having a biased opinion. But as we go through life, we are having a biased opinion based on the truth that we expect to be our reality, right? Which means that our thoughts kind of can mess up how we access our environment, okay? So another thing that's also true is that our thoughts dictate what it is that's available to us, right? And a lot of that has to do with our learning history. You know this if you're watching it, because that's what my whole audience is. Your learning history helps dictate what you believe is available for you in the future, which means, right, unless we start thinking differently, right, with ABA right now, and what Relational Frame just told you as the very dumbed down, watered down part, is that what we're going to do is we're going to continue living the past that we've already experienced, if that is the way that we're viewing the environment around us, which is reinforced by the thoughts that we have on the regular basis, which is dictating what actions are available to us in our behavioral repertoire based on the environment that we're in and our learning history. Okay, that feels kind of shitty to me, because it means what has happened will become, right? We've got a lot of people spending a lot of time in the conceptualized past, right? Or predicting into the feared future, rather than living in the eternal now, which has a bevy of wonderful opportunities that we don't necessarily see because we are fused to what our version of truth is, okay? And what we can also do, right, is, and we can mess up the environment, right? We can manipulate the environment in order to help people move in the direction of something new, right? Which is what behavior analysts do on a regular basis. But we also know that manipulating the environment can only do so much, right? And that there's only so much control that we have over the environment. So what's the other variable here? It is our conceptualization of what is available to us, right? And that's where our private events can play a role in how we assess our environment, right? We can defuse, which we're going to talk about that in a moment, and we can start opening up a new possibility of behavioral repertoire, even kind of on our own because we're believing that something else can be true, right? Which is a part of diffusion and self as context. So that's what ACT is a system of learning, right? That allows you the opportunity to work with this and a process-based, scientifically driven way of impacting our behavior, starting with our private events or our thoughts. Now, a lot of people will say private events and thoughts are not part of behaviorism. Okay, we're going to just cut the bullshit out for this moment and say that every single person is going to say that verbal behavior is part of behavior analysis because Skinner wrote a book called Verbal Behavior. Okay. What is thoughts other than verbal behavior? Now, it is true that it's not discrete. It is true that it's not measurable. And it is true that we are not going to treat it like that. But what's also true is that we can still play with it. We can still fuck around with it. We can still offer opportunities to work with it for the person, and we can measure the impact that it has on their observable behavior. Okay. So we're just going to leave that there. We're not measuring thoughts, folks. What we're doing is we're offering opportunities to help people change their thoughts in service of changing their observable behavior. And it is measured. Remember, you're going to go check those articles, starting with Hayes and then rippling out to wherever is interesting to you, because it's already been researched. Okay. So acceptance and commitment therapy as a model roughly looks like this hexagon. This is called the Hexaflex. If you want more in-depth training on this, you're going to go to my link tree or to my YouTube, and you're going to find the series called Hexaflex, right? And you're going to watch it because I'm going to break down every single one of these. But quickly, because I know you're excited, we've got a hexagon, right? And every single one of these touches. So it's not a process that you would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? It's something that you kind of dance, and you might have to go in a lot of different directions before you kind of land around the vicinity of the goal, which is psychological flexibility. Okay. But really quickly, we're going to talk about the pillars, right? So first, which makes sense, we've got acceptance. And remember, this is first just because I'm going in this order, not because this is an order you have to follow. Acceptance is the idea, right, that pain is not something to avoid. Okay. Acceptance is one of the hardest things that people have here. Psychological acceptance is that all of our emotions and sensations are welcome and they're a part of our experience and they're not to be avoided, right? And it's acceptance versus experiential avoidance. You guys should know what that word is, right? So these are the opposites. So we're trying to move people out of experiential avoidance, like that was shitty and I don't want to do it again, into acceptance that that's shitty and I'm still able to live the life that I want to live, even though that shitty thing happened. Okay. This is a very, very short way of doing it, right? All right. We've also got down here, we've got cognitive fusion. Cognitive diffusion is what it should say. Cognitive diffusion versus cognitive fusion. Okay. So let's say fused, right? That word, it means stuck together. Okay. So we've got a thought or a belief that is fused with us as a person, right? So sometimes that thought or belief could be that private events don't belong in behavior analysis until somebody asks some questions, does some amazing science, and then proves that it is. And then we have to defuse from that thought. We have to separate from it, right? This happens on a micro level all the time around certain rules and usually around how we identify as people, like rules that we've made for ourselves, rules that we've made for our society, and how we're supposed to act. And we don't ever really question those because of how our brain works, right? And relational frame theory can help you with that one if you want to continue referencing that, right? So we want to stop being fused and become defused to the idea that there's lots of different ways to see the world and that those can all kind of be correct based on how we view truth. Okay. Now at the bottom, we've got self as context versus attachment to the conceptualized self. The way that I usually help people to see this is that I'm a mom, okay? And there's all sorts of rules that come with being a mom. Like you have to be kind, you have to be nurturing, you have to be helpful, you have to be selfless. But not all of those are true all the time. And so if I wrap myself up in these self-identities, right, that might be problematic and it might be limiting if I become fused to this conceptualized self, because I am those things and I am more than those things and I am other things and I am contradictory things. And the same exists with rules, right? And so a lot of the times people have to experience this one through an exercise, usually a visualized meditation. And I've got several different ones on my YouTube if you want to go check those out, to be able to see that I can hold these things as true while also holding these other things as true, right? That it is both okay for me to be selfless at times, and that for me to be a good mother, and for me to take care of myself, and for that also to mean that I am a good mother, right? Okay. And so we want to release attachment to conceptualize self, whatever that might be true for you or the individual that you're working with, and move into a contextual, like a contextualize. So conceptual to contextual. Okay. Let's keep going because we're having fun. Up here, I abbreviated PMA means present moment awareness. Okay, present moment awareness. And that is versus conceptualize past or fears the future, right? We already talked about this a little bit in my description just a moment ago. But sometimes we get so caught up in our learning history and how we're going to apply that to our future that we don't stop and evaluate what's happening right now. And a lot of the times we miss a lot of cues in our, not only in our environment, but in our internal experience that would tell us a lot of really amazing information about what matters to us. But because of acceptance and we want to kind of bowl past feeling yucky, right? And stay within the conceptualized self that we have, right? We tend to jump into what's going to feed our truth versus what is also available to us in the environment, right? This takes us to a really big pillar, which is values, right? Because what do you do with all this information, right? What I'm asking you to do is basically open up your mind to a million opportunities all at the same time. How do you even work with that, right? And so values is the pillar that is going to tell you what matters to you as an individual, right? It's not what matters to everybody, right? It's what matters to you and your life. And what the opposite of values is not that you don't have values, right? It's a lack of clarity, okay? So if everything's important, nothing is important. And that can be tricky, but being able to, instead of taking on everything that the world tells you is important, get clear about what is important to you, what matters intrinsically to you as a person, and be able to give yourself permission to move towards that, right? Ask the questions that give you the opportunities to see that there's more available to you, right? Because it feels shitty to think that what matters to you isn't available to you, right? And start honing in on the arguments that you have that you can't move towards that, right? We're going to defuse from those. We're going to use ourselves as context to find them. We're going to accept that finding them might be uncomfortable. And we're going to use this present moment, right? To, instead of going with what we've always gone with, we're going to defuse into a new experimental version of committed action. And I forgot to put the opposite there, which was lack of action or stuckness. And try a behavioral experiment that is going to give us more information about how we can move towards what really matters to us instead of just what we've always had. Right? And that truly opens us into psychological flexibility that allows people to move towards the shit that fucking matters. Okay. And that is behavior analysis, right? Because we are analyzing a lot of different things actually here in this little model. A lot of it is on the inside, though, in service of being able to move us towards an environmental experience that is more of what we want. And I can't think of anything more applied behavior analytic than that. So that's what ACT is. Remember, you're going to go check out my other free trainings on my YouTube. You can find them on my link tree. And if you want to keep going in this, I have a number of applied ACT courses, including one CEU right now, where we go over a really amazing, very well researched book by Stephen Hayes called Get Out of Your Mind and Into Your Life. And let's start using this shit in our behavior analysis because it's good. All right, that's what ACT is. If you have questions, go ahead and write some comments below. If you know someone who needs to see this video, please share it with them. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video. It helps me out a ton, and subscribe if you want more info like this. Thanks. Bye.